I never had an NES growing up. As a kid, I was a Sega Master System kid, so I would actually make friends with people who had an NES so I could go play these different games. One of the games...
You're a user.
Yeah, I am a user, sorry. One of the games that really stuck out to me was Contra, because this was unlike anything I had seen at the time. It's two-player, first of all, which is amazing. You and your buddy just run around shooting aliens and bad guys. And then the power-ups in this game were insane. Like, you've got the homing machine gun, you've got the spread gun. Basically, once you get the spread gun, that's all you need, because you just cover the screen with all these giant tomato-sized bullets, and you just run through these stages as fast as you possibly can, destroying enemies, destroying structures, and it switches things up because every so often you'll enter a base, and then the camera will switch to a behind-the-back kind of view. So it's this fake 3D thing going on where you're in a room and you're fighting these guys at the end of the hall, and then once you destroy the wall, you run through it, and then you do it over and over again.
I have a bit of a different story because growing up, my dad actually had the NES. I was just an infant, just a toddler when this thing came out. So my dad was actually pretty cool and already had the NES and bought a bunch of games for it. And when I was old enough to actually know how to use my thumbs and play a video game, I jumped right into Bubble Bobble. It was really cute looking, and I just loved the way the graphics were, and I could play as a little dinosaur. And it was so strange. This game was so strange. I don't know if you've played it.
Yeah.
But it's weird the way we go through these levels, and we collect fruit, and we get these enemies by putting them in bubbles, and then we have to hit the enemies, and it got really challenging moving forward too. But what I loved about it was that every time you died, you would get a code, a game over code that you can use to jump into whatever level you had died in, which was awesome. And when my little brother was old enough to play with me, we could play co-op.
Speaking of games that would give you a code when you got a game over, Metroid was one of those games, and for me, that was a game that really opened my mind as to how big a game could actually be, because up until playing Metroid, I'd only seen games that had levels and stages that you can actually see the beginning of the stage, you could see the end of the stage, and then you knew that you were on like level 4, level 5, etc. Whereas with Metroid, this game takes place in a giant world, and the map just constantly gets bigger the more power-ups you find. You can turn Samus into a morph ball and go through little tubes. You can find hidden passages. And so this was a game that I'd have to keep coming back to at a friend's place and moving on and discovering more of this world and seeing these new enemies, getting new power-ups. And it was also one of the earliest games to scare me, because there are parts in the game where you're just running through and the music is really sporadic, and you'd just be running through and you can only hear the sounds of your footsteps, and then you would hear these tones going on in the background. It really did a great job at generating some sort of creepy atmosphere, and it's really minimalist as well. A lot of the background is just plain black, and you've got your platforms that you can jump on, you've got the doors that you go through, and this series has obviously held up over the years, and we've seen many iterations of Metroid. Metroid actually was redone for the Game Boy Advance as Metroid Zero Mission, which is an amazing game. But the original Metroid will always hold a place in my heart as being super creepy, and I'll never forget the time when we found out about the Justin Bailey password. And this was back in the day before the internet, obviously, and we didn't really have access to gaming magazines, though I'm sure that they did exist. So it was special when we found out about the Justin Bailey code, where you type in Justin Bailey at the password screen, then all dashes underneath each word, and then you start up the game and you're in a brand new section, and you see that the character you're playing as is actually a woman. And she's got green hair, she's like all pink and purple, and that was weird because all the while we were playing Metroid thinking we were a guy. And I think that was one of the best surprises in video games. If someone played through Metroid all the way to the end without using the code, they'd find out that, oh, Samus is actually a woman. That's amazing. It was really good. Like, one of the earliest examples of a strong female character in a game.
I'm sure other reviewers are going to say the same thing, but my best memories with my NES were always with Mario, because Mario was the dude. Mario was the dude with the stash that everybody loved, and that was my first experience of any kind. Does that sound really creepy? The dude with the stash that everybody loved?
I know why you like me so much.
Oh, is that what? Okay.
It's the
It must be the stash. That's what it was.
And the bad Italian accent.
Okay, yes. And yes, he was Italian, of course. My Italian roots just in this game. I loved it. I loved that he was a plumber. I loved that he had these friends. But the Super Mario, the first Super Mario Brothers, obviously you're just playing as Mario, just going through.
Mario Brothers, the first one, is actually really hard. And
It's so hard.
I've beaten all the Mario games, but I think Mario, the first one, gives me the most trouble for some reason.
Of course, it's incredibly difficult. So jumping into the second Mario Brothers, the Super Mario Brothers 2, that's when I could play as Peach.
Yeah.
And I freaking loved that. I loved that game. And just battling with that stupid dinosaur that throws eggs at you.
Birdo, that was
Yes.
amazing. Out of all the NES Mario games, Mario 2 is my favorite because
For sure.
you could choose who you are, and each character has different characteristics. So, like,
Yeah.
Luigi can jump a little higher.
Yeah, or Peach floats in the air a little bit
Yeah.
longer because of her dress. It holds her up, which I thought was awesome.
And there were so many new gameplay elements to the Mario series. Of course, then at that point, there was only the 2 Mario games, but I love the fact that you could pick up turnips and use them against enemies, or that you can actually stand on enemies and then pick them up and then throw them at other enemies.
Yes, and the potions that you can pick up and then throw, and then you go into this really dark area where you pick
yeah.
up new coins
So
and new
good.
power-ups. Just with the NES in general, I just feel like it was a great time in my childhood because I was still in elementary school and I had my NES as like my good companion when I came home, and my brother and I would always fight, but when we played co-op on our NES, we wouldn't, which was great. So then we got along for those brief moments. We got along. So Vito, if you're watching this, I enjoyed playing NES with you, bud.
That's really heartwarming and really sweet. I never had an NES growing up, but then once I discovered the joy of thrift stores, I bought a ton of NESs with the controllers, extra games, extra zappers. So now at home I've got like 4 NESs.
Nice.
And most of them work actually. I fix some of them up and I still go back to it every now and then.